Okay, so to start off on this recipe to make these little drumsticks, I am going to be using 2 cans of young green jackfruit. Now you can see I have 2 different cans here. I thought I had 2 of the same in my pantry, but I didn't. So we're just a little bit variations in sizes, but the jackfruit's gonna end up being the same. Now the base of this recipe comes from my book, Making Vegan Meat, the Plant-Based Food Science Cookbook. Thanks to everybody that's ordered it. If you haven't yet, one of my favorite recipes in the book is my jackfruit chicken. I absolutely, it's just so good. So that's why we're gonna be using it as the base for this particular recipe. Now, just like I like to do a lot with experimentation and trying new things, we're not gonna be making the jackfruit chicken exactly how it is in the book. We're gonna be using the base of the jackfruit, the chicken part, and then we're gonna skin it up a little bit, and we're gonna be using a barbecue dry rub. It's something I haven't made yet. I've done fried chicken drumsticks, I've done like skinned chicken drumsticks, but just like a baked with like barbecue rub is something I haven't tackled, so I'm really excited about that, and I think it's gonna be really good. So let's get moving. First thing that we need is 2 cans of young green jackfruit. We're just gonna drain these cans and rinse them under water while we're smashing the hard ends. See, jackfruit has a soft end, which is normally what people use for their meat, and it also has kind of like a hard, chewier end. We just wanna break that end up, just squeezing it in between your thumb, break it into smaller pieces. That's gonna work really well. You can eat it. It's really good for chicken texture. While we're doing that, we're just gonna wanna remove as many seeds as possible. After we have our jackfruit seeded and squeezed, throw that into a saucepan, cover it with water, and then we're gonna be adding about 1 tablespoon of chicken broth powder. Now, this is just a chicken flavor mix. This is not actual chicken, it's vegan chicken broth. This is plant-based, it's just chicken flavored. Loads of companies make chicken flavored broth mixes. There's one from Better Than Bouillon. This one's from Shangi. If you don't want to use chicken flavor, just use vegetable broth. It's gonna add some flavor to it and it's gonna still come out really, really good. Okay, so now that the jackfruit's been boiling for about 20 minutes, we're gonna pour the liquid, the remaining liquid, through a strainer, saving the jackfruit and saving the liquid. We're gonna be using that chickuny broth again here soon. We're gonna be using it for a few things. Then all we're gonna do is just let this kind of cool down, not to room temperature, just cool down to where it's not steaming hot. Okay, so the jackfruit looks good. We're just gonna add it to a large bowl. Make sure there's no seeds. Any big pieces are gonna be pressed down. This looks really good. I mean, it's really wild how much this looks like a pulled chicken or a pulled meat. The fibrous nature of jackfruit is just so meaty. It's awesome. It's one of my favorite things. Now at this point, we're just gonna give this some body, a little bit of extra flavor, and then help bind it together. We're gonna start off with a tablespoon of nutritional yeast. That's gonna give it, you know, some meatiness to it, a little bit denser of a flavor. Now for this recipe, I'm gonna be using 1 tablespoon of pea protein powder. Now there's a few different protein powders you can use. You could use pea protein powder, mung bean protein powder, chickpea protein powder. I mean, there's a million different protein powders. Any protein powder is really gonna help in this. I like the pea protein powder because it has a very mild flavor and helps kind of bind as well. And then lastly, for the binder, we're gonna be using 1.5 tablespoons of methyl cellulose. Methyl cellulose is one of my favorite binders. It works so well. It's what you find, it's the binder that's in the Impossible Burger, the Beyond Burger. Methyl cellulose has a really cool property where it will gel up while it's cool, and it will kind of like bind and retain almost like an egg white consistency. But when it's hot, when it's heated, it firms up, very much like meat does. And I'm actually just gonna get in there with my hands to make sure that it's nice and mixed up and that it feels good, because this should be fairly wet to begin with, because after about 20 minutes, that methyl cellulose is gonna really hydrate up. It's gonna really hydrate up, and this is gonna come out a little bit drier than what you think, what you're expected. Mine's coming out pretty good. Like, this looks like a good consistency. I have a feeling when it's fully hydrated up that it'll work really well. So we're just gonna cover this up, let it sit for about 10-15 minutes while we prep the rest of our ingredients. It's gonna get its full 20 minutes hydration time. Don't worry, it will. So now let's get ready for our bone. Now lately I've been using lemongrass for a drumstick bone, and it just seems to work perfect. I did it originally over at Live Kindly for a set of barbecue ribs that I made, and it just worked perfectly. And then ever since then, I've been using it to make my drumsticks, and it's just so good. So to prep these up, all we're gonna do is just peel off the outer skin of the lemongrass. You don't wanna peel too far, otherwise you're gonna not end up with any lemongrass left. I'm gonna chop the top off, and then I'm just gonna chop these into, this time we're just gonna do smaller drumsticks. Normally I make big, like KFC sized drumsticks. This time we're just doing like your Wingstop size drumsticks. So I was able to get 4 bones out of 1 stalk of thin lemongrass. Now all we're gonna do is just throw these in a strainer and give them a quick rinse, throw them in a bowl, and then just top them with about a tablespoon of cornstarch and just toss them in the cornstarch. Okay, so now at this point, we are ready to wrap. We have our drumsticks, we have our broth, our chicken from jackfruit, and we're gonna be wrapping these with a rice paper sheet skin. Now, commonly for my chicken, I use soy skin. I really like to use soy skin. It works out really well. It has a nice skin consistency to it. But for this, I want the rub to really stick in when we use that rub. And the rice paper is gonna help that stick because these aren't gonna be fried. We're gonna try them in an air fryer, kind of like oven situation. My little oven does kind of an air fry. And I think that's gonna work really, really well. So let's go ahead. We're gonna dip our rice paper sheet. Now we should be able to just use half of a rice paper sheet per drumstick. We're gonna set that out and let that hydrate up for just a second until it becomes, very pliable. And once that seems pliable, we're just gonna cut the sheet in half or drop on our bone. And we're just gonna do a small portion, small meatball-sized portion of your chickun. Wrap it around. Place it on the rice paper in a way to where the rice paper is gonna fold over. Then we're just gonna pick up your rice paper skin and wrap it tightly around the jackfruit, forming a skin. And there we go. This is it. Then all we have to do is just repeat. Once we got them all wrapped up, throw them on a plate, throw them in the freezer, and we're gonna let these freeze for about 2 hours. We want them to be frozen pretty solid. It's gonna help them cook once they're ready to go. So real quick, while we're waiting to finish today's recipe, I wanna tell you a little bit about what inspired this recipe, and that is this World's Fair barbecue rub from the Spice House, today's sponsor. The Spice House is known for being the top purveyor of the finest spices, herbs, blends, and extracts. And they have customers that range from renowned Michelin star chefs to home cooks everywhere. And their products range from essentials and rare spice variations to proprietary rubs and blends. And personally, I just love that they produce everything in-house in small batches for the best freshness and flavors. And like I said, today I'm gonna be using the World's Fair barbecue rub. Look at this rub. It was made to commemorate the 1893 World's Fair. It's a really unique blend of French shallots, Hawaiian sea salt, cane sugar, Thai chili peppers, Hungarian paprika, and Moroccan coriander seeds. Altogether, this tastes amazing. Now on top of that, I also got their adobo seasoning, sweet curry, gateway to the north, and their stir fry blend. All of these, I can't wait to use. So gang, click the link in the description below to pick up some of the finest spices, herbs, and blends from the Spice House. Let's get moving on making these World's Fair drumsticks. These are gonna be good, really good. Okay, so at this point, our drumsticks are pretty much done in the freezer. They firmed up really nice and well. I have some Miyoko's, I'm very sorry about the pronunciation, Miyoko's vegan butter. I just have that melted. I'm gonna make sure that all gets in there. I got about a 1/4 cup is what we're gonna be using. And it's gonna be pretty hot. What that's gonna do is it's gonna kind of like rehydrate the rice paper skin, give it a little bit of like that oil, the butter taste. It's gonna give something for our barbecue seasoning, our barbecue dry rub to kind of stick to. And then it's also gonna allow these that when we air fry them or bake them, they're gonna get nice and golden. So while that vegan butter is nice and hot, we're just gonna throw in our little drumsticks, kind of toss them around in that hot vegan butter. Just make sure they're nice and coated. It's really gonna add to the flavor of these too. That Miyoko's vegan butter is good. It's one of the best vegan butters I've ever had. Now at this point, we're just gonna toss in about 2 teaspoons of our barbecue rub. And this is just gonna be the initial coating. And just give these a toss. Now this stuff is gonna be good. Now I want these to be fully coated, so I'm just making sure that everything gets a nice amount of seasoning on it, and it's rubbed in, completely pressed in, and you'll see these look perfect. So let's throw them on our air fryer tray. We're gonna throw them in the air fryer at 400 degrees for about 10 minutes. Flip them over, cook them for another 10 minutes, and these are starting to look phenomenal. I actually gave mine another 5 minutes to give them just that little extra crisp. I'm gonna throw them on the cutting board and brush them with a little bit more of that barbecue rub in the butter, and oh my gosh, look at these. Look at these. jackfruit wings.
That looks amazing. Like, I cannot wait to bite into these.
I'm so excited.
They look so good.
Let's just jump into it.
Okay.
Here's the first one, jackfruit drumstick. Made the old school way, both a new seasoning.
Really good.
These are the best, yeah.
This is really good, yeah. I love the crunch on the outside.
Yep.
And the texture of the jackfruit is really firm. Like, it's very, very like meaty, and it even stretches like meat in your mouth.
It's why I love using methyl cellulose. It just really gives it that like super authentic, super legit.
The flavor is really good.
So I've used lemongrass a few times on these, but this is the first time I feel like I'm getting like a hint of the lemongrass flavor. I'm wondering if it's because like I air fried it so it got like a little hotter than it would normally would.
Maybe, but I don't think it's too strong. It's just a really nice seasoning.
Yeah. Out of all the recipes I make, the jackfruit chicken with the methyl cellulose is my favorite.
It's really good. I love it.
I don't think any wing eater would dislike this.
No, you couldn't.
What do you think about the flavor of the skin and the rub? And
Yeah, it's really nice.
does it remind you of like a dry rub?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you should make these. They're really good.
I would love for, you know, like Edgy Veg, if you watch this, or, you know, the Burger Dude, Avant-Garde Vegan made a joke about how, I don't know if it was directed towards me or not, but something about how like just making food look like the food. I mean, this doesn't just look like the food, it looks like it and tastes like it. I would love for you all to make this exactly this way. Don't substitute the methyl cellulose. Don't do anything, just make it like this. I'm gonna put it out there because everybody, you know, sometimes they think that the recipes might not be as good. And I always tell people to make them, just make it. But this time I'm putting my foot down. Everybody, Merle, Goodful, you wanna make some chicken drumsticks that actually taste just like chicken? Merle, like if you make these, you'll fool everybody on the Tasty staff. I'm that confident.
They're really good.
People will lose their mind when they eat these. They really will.
Those were really good, babe.
I mean, they're just
amazing.